Hello, Bigfoot enthusiasts. Scott here from Squatch America.
And Hannah, Domestic Goddess, Chief Cook, and Doggy Mama here in the Paddy Wagon tonight.
And tonight we are coming to you live from
Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, Texas.
We are in you again, finally.
Yep.
We've waited so long.
So we're in the Central Time Zone, and so we are ready to talk about tonight conspiracy theories, because we had an epiphany, or Hannah actually had an epiphany yesterday in Roswell. So let's play that footage and get into this. All right. Well, welcome everyone.
We want to make sure to verbally acknowledge all of our normal people. Scott cannot see the chat tonight. He's going to die of absolute suspense. We've got in the house Daniel and Uncle Bone, Scott Goebel, and Renee and Donna. And let's see who else is here tonight. I feel like the romper room lady. Greg Brush is in the house. So thank you so much for coming. There are more of you who are lurking. So I see 17 of you in the house. So go ahead and smash the like button. Give us those likes. Our channel is really starting to take off and grow now. And we know that you guys are a huge part of that. So pick on Scott and I. Which Scott? This Scott or the other Scott? Got multiple Scotts.
Yeah.
Sounds like a disease, multiple Scott syndrome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you saw our video that dropped last Friday, it's
Dale. Hi, Dale.
It's about
and Jim and Richard.
Scott and I squatching, and it's going to be like a 3-part, maybe a 4-part series. So next one is coming next Friday, and I hope you enjoyed our Terrific Tuesdays. Like I said, Terrific Tuesdays are just us traveling kind of videos and fun things. And there's a cool one coming up because we just got done visiting the Roswell, New Mexico,
the UFO Museum.
The UFO Museum, which sparked some interest with Hannah and government conspiracies. So
could have nothing to do with the fact that I worked for the government for over a flippin' decade.
Yeah, there's that. But anyway, because one thing, when we were looking at all the exhibits about the Roswell and all the other alien space stuff, but primarily we're in Roswell, and the UFO Museum has a lot of stuff on Roswell. And what was interesting is that I knew that there was the crash out in the farmer's field. There was initially the intelligence officer said that it was UFO, and then he said it was a weather balloon. And then later on, they said it was some kind of test parachute thing. And that got Hannah thinking about, wait, they had a conspiracy about the conspiracy on top of the conspiracy about the other conspiracy.
And then there was the whole display about the X-Files.
Yeah.
And that kind of put it all together for me.
So tonight,
any X-Files fans out there?
Yeah.
Put a 1 in the chat if you love the X-Files.
Oh, hey, Galen. I do say Galen.
Yeah, Galen.
Hey, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while.
Block is in. I love the X-Files series. The movies I thought sucked. Yeah. Especially that whole splicing the heads on, like 3 heads on one dog. All right. Of course, Uncle Bones loves the X-Files. That's right. I know. I love that series. In fact, we should start watching that again.
We should. Just for fun.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to be talking about Bigfoot and conspiracies. So
I think we just about had a conspiratorial crisis here earlier tonight.
What was that?
Someone sabotaged our coffee pot.
Yes.
The coffee pot about didn't work.
It glitched out. Yeah.
So we almost didn't have coffee for the evening.
And that would have been a disaster.
That would have added to Scott's primary conspiracy theory that the universe hates him and is out to destroy him.
Yep. It's true. Anyway, so So let's talk about some Bigfoot conspiracies. The first one I got to get into, there's a lot of reading, so Hannah's going to have fun.
But before we start, if you guys have heard any Bigfoot conspiracy theories, we're going to want to know about them. So we may open up the studio for guests
to come in if you want to, but throw them in the chat right now if you've got ones you want to talk about. So we're going to the first one we're going to talk about is one that's kind of near and dear because we were around when this happened, and it's the Mount St. Helens conspiracy with when the mountain blew up.
Where were you when the mountain blew? I can tell you exactly where I was.
Yep. Hannah was buried in ash in the town she was in. Yep.
I could tell you the whole story from 7:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock that night. What went down in the day, play by play. I'm rhyming tonight. Okay, let's hear our first.
So here's the first account.
The first account is from Who's Watching You, an exploration of the Bigfoot phenomenon in the Pacific Northwest by Linda Coyle Suchi. Was placed in charge of one pile of dead animals. The pile was covered, and no one was allowed to come near it. Armed U.S. National Guard personnel were guarding this pile. On the day that they were going to move this group of bodies, Bradshaw, I'm sure that's who the ... was, Bradshaw, was standing very close to the pile and was told to keep his mouth closed about what we was to witness. Who typed that?
I don't know.
What we was
Linda.
to witness. Oh, sorry, Linda. Man, we got to work on your grammar. Anyway, when the tarps were removed, he was amazed to see that the bodies were those of Sasquatch. Some badly burned, some not. They were placed in a large net and lifted into the back of a truck, which was then tarped over. Freedom on Information Acts were filed to see if there was an official report. The response was quite predictable and uninformative.
Right. In other words, no. So what's interesting about this is we've heard this story from several military individuals about these bodies being taken off. I mean, they literally had groups out collecting dead animals off the mountain, and apparently they separated them by type. So they said there was a large group of bodies. Now, I found another report from an U.S. Army gentleman, and I found a video about it, so we're going to play that right now.
I was a National Guardsman at the Mount St. Helens site, and this is the first time I ever spoken about what I saw firsthand. I lived in Spokane, Washington, and was 24 at the time this all took place. I was placed. There were numerous.
Let me know if you guys can hear that. Oops, sorry. I guess you can't hear that. All right, hold on. I gotta go try this again. I love this technology stuff. Okay.
All right, so while he's trying to fix this, share screen.
Window.
Share a tab or screen, Chrome tab, share Chrome tab.
No, we have to share the screen.
It says to share audio. Okay, share the screen. Okay, we're going to try again, folks. Share the entire screen. Click entire screen. Share entire screen.
Okay.
There you go. Screen 2.
Nope, that's not it. We need the window. Stop.
Oh,
know it.
goodness
I've
gracious.
done this 1,000 times.
He's done this 1,000 times. Anyway,
But it didn't change anything.
Michael
It's
says
on.
Michael says he was. That's because
Yep.
it doesn't want you to share a window. It wants you to share a tab or screen.
Okay, we'll share the screen.
We're going to share the screen, folks. Here we go. Share. Click share.
But then they won't. Hold on. You're watching me do weird stuff. Okay.
We have no idea what you're seeing now.
I was a National Guardsman at the Mount St. Helens site, and this is the first time I ever spoken about what I saw firsthand. I lived in Spokane, Washington, and was 24 at the time this all took place. I was placed on a special cleanup crew further up the mountain. A large tent was set up, and it was to be guarded by armed soldiers who were not part of the National Guard. There were numerous soldiers on the scene that were not members of the Guard. We were given a briefing by a soldier who said that after he spoke to us, we would forget about him and what he said at the end of the mission. This was strange, as we never dealt with anything like this before. Myself and 4 other guardsmen were told to follow a group of soldiers and not to speak to each other and to remain very quiet overall. We were told to get into a Jeep and wait. We sat in the Jeep for maybe a half an hour. Eventually, another Jeep arrived carrying a civilian and another member of the military. The civilian was brought into the tent and he emerged a few minutes later, followed by a large, hairy creature. It looked like a large man covered in fur, and the best way to describe it was like Beast from X-Men, only brown. This creature looked to have some burns and had a bandage on its arm. At first we were afraid, but when it walked by, we could see its eyes, and it just looked very sad and somber. He climbed into the back of the pickup with the civilian, and the two were speaking in a weird language I had never heard. It would cough at times. We followed the truck to different areas. There were 5 total stops. Each time we stopped, we were told to follow the civilian and the creature. Each time we followed them to rocky areas where there were caves. The creature would make a sound and then listen. First area, he made a sound, and we all just waited in silence. After a few minutes, the creature looked at the civilian and then at the ground. The civilian at one point touched his shoulder and called for a canteen to give the creature a drink. The same thing happened at the next area, but this time there was a response to the sound. After a few minutes, 2 soldiers emerged from the cave carrying a badly burned creature, just like the one with the civilian. The creature bent down next to it and looked at it over for about 5 minutes. It then spoke softly with the civilian. It turned and walked back to the truck, and we were told to follow. As we were walking away, we heard a shot, and we knew it was one of the soldiers putting the creature out of its misery. Wow. There was no response at the 3rd or 4th site, but at the 5th there was another return sound to the creature. This time it was different, and soldiers carried out a creature with a badly burned left leg. We were then ordered to all help get the very large stretcher from the truck and help place the creature on it and carry it back to the truck. We then immediately returned to the base camp. The creature was carried into the tent while the other creature and the civilians spoke. We were ordered to stay in the Jeep until we were to be debriefed. As the creature turned to walk into the tent, it looked at us and made a waving gesture with its hand. We took it as a thank you for what we had done. By the time we were ordered out of the Jeep, we were all in shock. We were called over to an area to be debriefed, and it was just strange. I will never forget what was said because it was just not what was expected. I thought I would hear, listen, you took an oath and now you need to live up for it for your country, with a threat also implied. A different high ranking soldier just said, look, do you all really want an explanation? You saw what we were doing. These creatures do live in these areas. They mean no harm and want to be left alone. Do you really want to do anything that may cause them any trouble? They are like us in a lot of ways. If If you need or want to talk about this, just wait about 30 years. By that time, there will be likely no reason to keep them a secret. We were then ordered back to the guard camp because they were breaking it up so nobody saw too much and knew everything that happened. We did not speak of it, and after a few months, I just took the attitude that these things live out there, and honestly, my life is no different because of it. I only bring it up now because people have been writing a lot about the Mount St. Helens, and I believe that the whole story should be told. I will also say this. I like to camp and hike and have done so many times throughout the Northwest. Every time I would look for signs of these creatures, tracks, listen for sounds, etc. I never saw or heard anything other than what I did that day on Mount St. Helens. Wow, that was crazy right there. Imagine that. Imagine like seeing like a civilian, like probably a Indian language guy communicating with a creature and like helping the creature.
All right. So what do you think about that?
We've got a couple things. Don Fuller said, "Oh, come on." Donna said, "Fascinating, but the narrative sounds scripted." Well, it does because there was a guy reading it.
Yeah.
He was reading someone else's account.
Yeah. So what I think was weird is that there's a whole bunch wrong with that. Didn't sound like a military guy saying it. I know he's reading a script, but it doesn't sound like a military guy. Because,
you mean the actual text of it didn't sound?
Yeah, because some of the stuff he was talking about, he wasn't using military language to talk about his superiors and things like that. So I look at little things like that. I'm kind of follow along the. Yeah, that's a little bit too far-fetched for me to think that the government. Well, I think the government knows they exist. I don't think they have Bigfoot linguists in the military. Heck, most of the time we were in Iraq, we didn't have Arabic linguists with us, and we were supposed to, but we didn't.
Yeah. So Michael Friedman said, "Hey, Michael, by the way, nice to see you. I read that account a long time ago. Same as then. I'll pay no attention to it now." Yeah. It's a great story, though, isn't it? And Michael says he was in Camas, Washington, when the Mountain Blue, so he probably got at least as much ash as we did. I was in Yakima, and we were absolutely annihilated with ash. It was the best week off of school ever, though. Tell you what.
Yep.
So Richard Elmore said, "My ex-wife was there in helicopters. It's real."
Yeah, I've heard that the helicopter thing more than once.
And I've heard the removal of huge corpses. So what else do you have for us by way of conspiracy theories?
Okay, so this next one's kind of interesting. This is a back and forth, and I'm sure Michael's seen this too. And what's really interesting about it is we're going to get into stuff later on this, but this was a back and forth between the U.S. government, FBI, and Peter Byrne in the 70s. And what had happened is Peter Byrne had sent some hair that he had picked up to the FBI to have them test it to see if it was Bigfoot. So there was this long back and forth with these letters, and I've got copies of all these letters here. And then people later on asking for like the Freedom of Information Act to see these letters. And so basically in August of 2016, they did a Freedom of Information Act request about these letters from the late 70s, early 80s. And basically, the government said they don't have any information.
What? The government doesn't know anything?
Yeah, the government doesn't know anything. Yeah.
I'm just gonna pick up my coffee bucket for that one. Yes.
So, and this,
Scott,
what?
This coffee bucket is no joke, and I drink buckets of coffee.
Yep. So I need to open one more window.
What are you trying to do over there?
My stuff.
Oh my goodness. I have no idea what he's doing, folks.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
So,
Did you want me to read this or what?
no, you don't have to. It's just basically
So they're asking for information that Bigfoot or Sasquatch bodies were discovered and or recovered just after the eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington State. Well, that's the problem. Whoever typed this put Mr. St. Helens because nobody knows how to proofread. And what sort of body disposal did the Forest Service undertake for the four-legged animals who were killed in the eruption? So, anyway, and it sounds like they sent 50 pages back to them, which is a way that they have of burying it. They just here, read all these pages, see if you find what you want.
I couldn't find the 50 pages.
Yeah.
But everything is probably redacted. So
yes.
Here's
because
what.
Did you know that when you send for records, the government has every right to black out whatever they don't want you to read?
Yeah.
I know that from having worked for the government for over a decade.
Yeah. So here's what I started talking about earlier with Peter Byrne. Peter Byrne had sent some hair to the FBI and asked them to test it. And it took over 3 years to get an answer. And basically, he had to bug the crap out of them. And these are copies of all the letters. I know you can hardly read them.
I can't even do that.
But basically, they went back and forth with these letters for quite some time. Dear Mr. Burns, in reference you made about the letter on August 24th,
1976, concerning the reported examination of hairs
You
by the
can read it. I
FBI
can't read it.
laboratory in connection with the Bigfoot phenomenon. Since the publication of the Washington Environmental Atlas in 1975, which referred to such examinations, we have received several inquiries similar to yours. However, we have been unable to locate any references to such examinations in our files.
There you go.
I don't recall.
I don't recall. So
I don't remember. Did you know?
What?
Did you know? So I'm telling you, there are reasons why I'm starting to nothing. Why I honestly give a way more legitimacy to conspiracy theories. It happened once upon a time when I was a child welfare social worker. Actually, I was a former child welfare social worker, and I was subpoenaed in a case, in a hearing regarding one of the cases I had worked a few years prior, and I was actually given legal counsel to freely use, I don't remember. Rather than tell the truth, because actually in telling the truth, I was throwing our agency under the bus, which needed to be thrown under the bus. Our attorney said, just it's okay to say that you don't remember something. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, I couldn't remember to say I don't remember. And anyway, they threw me out as a witness. So, anywho.
So that's the thing. So the government does cover stuff up all the time.
And they very conveniently don't recall.
So I know you can't read any of this stuff. You might want, if you want to go back, just pause it, zoom in on it if you can. But
okay, to report the purpose of this is to report the results of the examination of hairs from the from the organization. Basically, the hair sample was delivered. The hairs were determined to be from a member of the deer family.
Deer family. So it was deer hair. That he sent them, and it caused a big brouhaha for a while that the government was covering up the fact that it was Bigfoot hair, and he actually sent him Bigfoot. No, he actually sent him deer hair. Peter just didn't know the difference, or he wasn't sure. I don't know how to put it, but
I will read it. Don't try to read it. It's silly. Okay.
All right. So this here is actually, I think this is it.
Well, let me read it.
Yeah, here we go. I think this was a report.
How about if I just read it?
I know this was actually a report or something written by Jeff Meldrum.
Okay.
about
And
this.
before I read this, I want to read exactly what Pappy says. If the government has been suppressing the real history of our country, what? It's safe to say they did the same with cryptid info.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for the pursuers of the elusive Bigfoot, skin and hair samples belonging to a deer provided a dead end. Newly released FBI records detail a 1976 request by Peter C. Byrne, who submitted samples he thought belonged to the beast. An Idaho State University professor who researches Bigfoot says this is a misdirection, and he has hair samples he is confident belong to the legend. It's a tempest in a teapot, said Jeff Meldrum. I can hear him saying that.
Yeah.
Totally hear him saying it. An anatomy and anthropology professor at ISU. Just from that poor quality black and white image, you can tell it's not primate hair. I could have told you on the basis of that photo alone that it was almost certainly ungulate. That's a fancy name for deer?
Yep.
News like this is a disservice to the bountiful evidence that does exist, Meldrum said. Skeptics love it, but it diverts attention away from the more compelling evidence, like the hair that I've mentioned and all the other evidence, Meldrum said. The footprint evidence, the vocalizations, the photographic evidence, the continuing ongoing eyewitness accounts by credible, reliable, less impressionable witnesses. Doesn't sound to me like Jeff was much of a Byrne fan.
Or this whole evidence thing, yeah.
Okay. In 2017, the Spokesman Review tagged along with Cliff Barackman in one of his searches for Sasquatch in Walla Walla. Barackman is best known for his Animal Planet show, Finding Bigfoot, which went off the air a little more than a year ago.
Okay. So,
I would just love to hear him say tempest in a teapot in real life. That would be awesome.
All right.
Okay. Do you want me to keep reading?
Yes, I do.
Okay. There is a remarkable polarity in opinion surrounding Paul's evidence. Is this Paul?
Paul Freeman.
Paul, okay. Hey, Michael, listen up. On the one hand, there are the skeptics / critics, such as Joel Hardin, U.S. Border Patrol agent, and Peter Byrne, adventurer and Bigfoot Yeti investigator. Hardin was the U.S. Border Patrol tracker called in by the United States Forest Service to investigate the initial encounter reported by Freeman. From the outset, Hardin betrayed a skepticism about Sasquatch and participated in conversations to that effect even before his examination of the trackway, as reported by Renee DeHinden. I just want to say that their sentences are way too long. These are like total long sentences.
This is actually from Michael's book. So
sorry, these are really long sentences. I read at a middle school level. Hardin's report clearly reinforced his training and bias as a man tracker with a narrow frame of reference for interpreting signs of human gait patterns and footprints. His criticisms of the trackway highlighted the very contrasts one might expect for a large, heavy bipedal non-human hominoid, e.g., who knows the Latin for e.g.? A flat, archless foot, lacking differential plantar pressure points beneath heel and ball, the more consistent step length accompanying a compliant gait. His observations were spot on, but his interpretations were not. He devoted an entire chapter to his misapprehension of the footprint evidence. Hardin, 2004.
Okay, so I wanted to bring this up, and this is out of Michael's book, actually, was this guy named Hardin from the U.S. Forest Service. Now here's my conspiracy theory on this. I believe
that is what we're talking about.
I believe the U.S. Forest Service deliberately sent this man there to debunk it, because he debunked it before he even investigated anything. If I'm correct, Michael, am I correct? He came in with this isn't real.
He came in with a preconceived conclusion.
Well, he might have came in with a conclusion he was told to come in with. That's what I'm trying to say.
He came in with instructions.
Instructions, like you were instructed
to not remember anything.
To not remember anything. He was instructed to say these aren't anything.
Yeah.
These footprints don't belong to anything.
What, you mean the government might actually construct a conclusion that serves their purpose?
Oh, yeah.
Not the purpose of truth?
Yeah.
What?
Inflation.
No.
Inflation is transitory. Okay. So here's the thing.
We have enough money to have two wars going on.
Yeah, here's something else that goes along. And now this is also from Michael's book. Okay. So
these are quotes from other sources that are included in Michael's book.
Right. Yeah. Here we go.
All right. Peter Byrne, a longtime investigator of Bigfoot and former director of the Bigfoot Research Center, dismissed the tracks I documented in 1996, which were shown to me by Freeman, suggesting they might be bear tracks. He went on to opine That right there says this is a smart alecky statement.
Yeah.
Opine in print that the Blue Mountains seem to be a likely habitat for Sasquatch, but then made the inexplicable assertion that no credible evidence had ever been discovered there.
So here's a really interesting thing to me. Of course, you got to think back in the day, and it's not so much today. I imagine there's a little bit of this going on, but
What,
what we tried,
Bigfooters at each other's
big
throats?
footers at each other's throats.
Just a little bit going on?
Yeah.
No.
I try to stay out of that mess as much as possible.
I'm the one that's on social media. Let me tell you what, he has no idea what's going on there in the ranks. Oh my gosh.
I know.
It is drama all the time.
Yeah. So, but here's something really interesting. I would like to plug into this. Just last year, Hannah and I had the opportunity to go squatching in some private property in the Blue Mountains. And the older gentleman in his 80s, I think, who owns the property, was telling us how often Peter Byrne used to show up there and research
in the Blue
Mountains. And then also talking with Todd Neese, who was there with Peter Byrne at the time when they were doing the research in the Blue Mountains. So Peter Byrne might have said, that's the blah, blah, blah. That's probably not real. I will find the real stuff. So he started doing research in that area to find it. I think he was just kind of putting people off so he could be the hero.
Because, yeah. So before you continue, we're going to have to take a station identification, but Locke, I love this man. Does anyone believe that 3 buildings fell in a manner consistent with a controlled demolition, one of which was not even hit with a plane, resulting in pools of molten metal?
Yeah, that's true.
And Renee suggests, put Renee's comment up. It's at the bottom there. Can you imagine if they all worked together?
That would be crazy. That's just crazy talk.
Did you know that red ants and black ants won't even know each other exist, and they will be side by side and never ever fight with each other until someone shakes up the jar they're in, and then they'll all kill each other. So the question is not, are the red ants or the black ants better or worse or good or evil, but who is shaking the jar?
Yeah, there's
the question. And time for commercial. As we travel and search for Bigfoot, we use a lot of equipment that uses the internet to operate. Also, in our town hall meetings and live streams, we need a reliable connection. We use Nomad Internet. There's a link and discount code below, so join us and have internet access on the go. By the way, folks, our sponsorship by Nomad Internet ends in about 6 months. So unless y'all start buying internet, we're going to have to get another sponsor.
Yeah.
So buy some internet.
Yeah, there we go.
All right.
So.
All right. If the government was involved, the ants would have rations. It's true. All right.
So now we're going to talk about my very own conspiracy theory, and I'm going to play you a clip from a video, and I hope the audio works, that I from a video we did in Texas.
Not too far from where we are now.
Yeah. When was this?
2021.
21. Okay. So let's see if this works.
This is before you had a scruffy face.
Yeah, before I had the scruffy face. Here we go.
Give us sound feedback, please.
Scott here from Squatch America. And we are in the Sam Houston National Forest, also known as the Big Thicket. And we're out here following up on some Bigfoot reports, and it's the beginning of February of 2021, and it's beautiful out here. Love being in the South in the wintertime. Sure beats South Dakota right now. But it's kind of interesting. We came out here today to check out the area and follow up on some reports. And we thought it would be a good time to go because a couple days ago a really good downpour came through thunderstorm, had thunder and lightning and the whole thing. Thought that it would leave some good cracks in muddy areas if possible. So far, we haven't run across any. We haven't run across any muddy areas actually dried out in one day. So that's probably out for us. We did see some interesting tree stuff, but nothing conclusive. We found some interesting piece of scat though. One I'm not familiar with. I am familiar with this type of forest. I spent a lot of time in Georgia, and this is very similar to the forest in Georgia. You got some lovely deserty type plants mixed with some fir trees and pine trees and whatever these are trees. I'm not sure. Um, but we are going to spend the day out here looking around and seeing what we can find.
Those are my golf. Those are my golf.
There's some really interesting sightings here, and here's one of them now.
My family and I had moved to Montgomery County in October of 2001. In December, I'd noticed an old logging road leading into the Sam Houston National Forest from the subdivision, which was still under development at that time. I haven't hiked since I was a teenager, so I decided to see where this road went when the weather permitted. In April 2002, I'd taken some vacation time from work, and one afternoon after mowing, I thought I would go for a walk, a routine I continued for several days, going further down the road and deeper into the woods with each trek. I'd seen evidence of deer, hog, squirrel, and even bear in that area. On the sixth day, I walked by an area that had springs on both sides of the trail, which alternated sides every so often. I noticed on this trip there was no animal sound or activity, and I felt watched. So I stopped and surveyed my surroundings. To the east of me, about 25 yards away in the thick underbrush, something quite robust in size and dark in color seemed to be crouched between a couple of trees looking in my direction. I thought it was a large hog or maybe a bear. So I turned south and headed toward home. But this creature moved along with me, keeping a distance of approximately 15 to 30 yards between us at all times. We continued this kind of cat and mouse routine for about 20, maybe 25 minutes. I stopped to relieve myself, then suddenly, I don't know what possessed me to turn into the woods toward this creature, but I did. It stopped and crouched very low to the ground and remained perfectly still. I'd gotten about 10 yards from it, and then I got wind of a strange odor I can't describe. I heard a low guttural growl coming from the creature's area. I could see it was very dark in color and almost lying in a prone position, much like a sniper lining up a shot. It had human-like legs, only very hairy, and I could make out thick arms and shoulders, also covered with thick hair, probably no more than 1 to 2 inches in length. It was down, almost as if it was trying to hide its face. I would estimate it to be no more than 6 feet tall, but the hair on my neck stood up when I heard movement of something large moving in the woods from the trail behind me. I moved quickly back onto the trail, and it seemed I was no longer being followed, so I slowed my pace. By this time, I was about 100 to 125 yards from the point I had urinated. I turned and I saw this dark figure walk upright out of the east woods and stop at my pedal area. It squatted for a few seconds and stood up and directly at me for a few more. Then it turned abruptly toward the west woods. and a much larger dark being came slightly into view. They both watched me as I backpedaled, watching them for another dozen or so yards when I decided that home was the best place to be and ran off. So there were about 3 years of follow-up to this story. And over the next 3 years, he, living in that area, he would often feel being watched when he was outdoors. He would hear loud crashing sounds from the woods. During times of no animal activity in the area, all of his dogs would growl and look fearfully into the woods. He would hear occasional chattering and screams, smell foul odors. Different sticks and debris would be thrown from the woods, and he even saw eye shine one evening about 8 feet from the ground. And his neighbor even said at that time that she heard grunts and groans some nights, and her dog would shake.
All right, this just might be a coincidence this time, but I feel like I've been beating a dead horse about how whenever there's a Bigfoot report in an area, you get a controlled burn. And we're here doing our search, and lo and behold, the area that we're going to, whether it's just my bad luck or not, ended up being in a controlled burn. And very recently, it's still smoking here behind me. So is that a government covered up? I don't know. But I kind of doubt it this time because we haven't had a lot of recent reports in this area. It just might be a coincidence, but it's an interesting coincidence. So thanks for watching, and thanks for spending your time here with us in the National Forest of Central Texas, the Big Thicket, they call it. And as always, like, subscribe, click the bell notification so you know when we do a new video. All right.
That was a great day. That's when we discovered what happens when you let Daisy off chain.
Yeah.
Anyway, that dog has been more drama. Anyway, that was really interesting.
Yeah. So
by the way, those red bay leaves that we found, I still use them in my cooking, and I can't wait to go back to Sam Houston National Forest to get some more bay leaves.
So what I was referring to in that video is this has happened to me 3 times now, that we've got a series of reports in an area, and by the time I get there, there's been a controlled burn in that area. Now, once is probably a coincidence,
Fool
but
me once, shame on me.
yeah, fool me twice, shame on you. So it's been 3 times that that's happened, and I'm wondering if there's like a large amount of Bigfoot activity in a certain area that the Forest Service will do a controlled burn to drive them out.
This is listening to you all the time. Who is it reporting all of this conversation?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we've got a couple comments here. First of all, Locke. Locke says, does anyone believe the government is hiding Bigfoot out of the goodness of their hearts? They can't get away with medical experiments on black people anymore, but Bigfoot is free game. We just learned something new.
I know. I was about to get into that tonight, too.
Okay, then I will be quiet. Anyway, and then Donna says, I had a taste of conspiracy activity. I remember this when casting a tract on state forest property, and the next day the area was closed. Never have seen it closed in the 10 years I've been there.
Yep.
I tell you what, here is my ultimate. This is while Scott's looking up something on his phone because he was yelling at me for being on my phone 5 minutes before the show started. But gander, goose, whatever. Anyway, here's my thing.
I'm looking for a photo I need to show.
Yeah, whatever. My thing is this. If you don't want someone looking at something, are you going to be drawing all sorts of attention to it while you try to hide it? It's like Shakespeare wrote in one of his plays, methinks thou doth protest too much. And the way it's like there's nothing wrong with this. This isn't going to hurt you. And now if you look at how certain companies are are changing their what these things may do to you.
Mm-hmm.
Not announcing it, but they are starting to, oh, well, it might hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
Methinks thou doth protest too much. So anyway, there we go. And let's see. Dawn says the big thicket leaves a bad taste in my mouth about a planned hoax by a big YouTuber constructing a story. Well, we are not big YouTubers. We would like to think we're big YouTubers, and maybe
I
we will
know.
be someday.
They might be one he's talking about somebody else.
I don't know who he's talking about,
Me either.
but because I don't know if we watch big YouTubers. Well, we do watch big YouTubers, but most of them are conspiracy theorists. So, and well paid ones. But okay. Oh my gosh. Scott Goebel says the Forest Service law enforcement has been hanging around my research area all summer.
Interesting.
In that same place where we were camping together?
Yep.
Huh, interesting. All right. Did you
And
find
we
your
were
picture?
harassed in
We weren't
Washington.
harassed. They just asked us if we were burning any actual fire.
I know. And then he asked us if we had propane. And then he wanted to see it. And then he wanted to tell us how there's no animals around. And it was kind of interesting.
I don't trust government to save my life. Any level of government. I worked for government for over 10 years, and guess what? I wouldn't trust me working for government anymore.
Yep.
All right, Scott has seen them
Twice since we left.
Interesting.
All right. So here's
Interesting.
another interesting thing that is kind of a government conspiracy type deal, but it's kind of interesting. We just were in Alamogordo area, and we were up in Cloudcroft, and there's a video coming for that. By the way, folks, if you ever go to a place called Cloudcroft, New Mexico,
You want to go to Cloudcroft, New Mexico.
You
Maybe
want
the
to.
only place in New Mexico that you really want to go. Roswell's okay. But Cloudcroft has got something awesome coming.
yes, there.
Watch our video. We're not going to tell you now.
Yeah. So we got this sent to us, and I'm sorry I didn't download it. I spaced it in my brain, but so I'll see if we can get this. Come on, focus. You can't see it really well. Anyway, there is
There's a little face there.
a little creature up in a tree
Yeah.
right there, and
Some people are convinced that is Bigfoot.
yeah. So what you got to do is I wonder if it works better that way. Yeah, it does. So you can see that up in the tree there. And if it's got a red circle around it, that means it's a Bigfoot. That's the law.
Yep.
But
Juno Tafoya. Oh, by the way, hello, Juno. Says come to Dulce, New Mexico. We've been to 3 places in New Mexico now. We are going back to Cloudcroft in a few months.
Yeah.
Is Dulce near Cloudcroft? I don't even know.
We'll have to look it up. But anyway, so what was interesting is you need to do some research in the area that you're going to be doing research in.
Find
that
the
make sense?
context of the area.
Find the
What's
context.
area
Yeah,
about?
find the context of the area. So something we did is we often,
Scott says it looks like a juvenile.
yeah,
Well,
okay.
just hang tight,
Just
buddy.
hang tight, buddy. So it does look like a juvenile hanging in a tree in the middle of a pine forest in New Mexico. So what's interesting about this area does have Bigfoot reports, by the way. But
We even went squatching with a Bigfooter down there.
yeah, we did.
We went squatching with Jesus.
Yeah, and another couple we went squatching
Yes,
with up
2.
there.
Yep.
2 different times we went to 2 different locations. But here's the interesting thing. What we do is when we travel, it's always really cool, and I can't iterate this enough. If you're in an
Nice
area,
word usage.
I know. Go to local museums. Believe it or not, these little tiny local museums, and even the bigger museums in some places, you learn stuff.
And not only that, sit down, have coffee with old time locals, like people who've been there for 50 years.
Yep. Those old timers will put you straight every time. Even if they don't believe in Bigfoot and then they want to tell you how stupid you are, listen to them, because
They may know something.
they may know something.
We found something out about the whole Alamogordo area. that we had not known before
That-
and that you never hear anymore.
Right. So, in our video that we posted on Tuesday, was it this Tuesday we did the space one?
Yeah, the Space Museum.
Okay.
Yes.
The Space Museum.
All museums, Ben. All museums.
All museums. Just local museums. Any museum you see in the area, they have like mining and mineral museums and like local history museums or whatever.
Yeah. If it says museum, it's worth it.
It's worth it just to go there, because I find a lot of Bigfoot stuff in these museums, believe it or not, especially in the Native American ones.
Anyway, get back to Alamogordo.
Okay, so we were at the Space Museum and we learned about the first chimp in space that they sent up in space to see if the chimp lived, then maybe people could do this. So they launched the chimp. He lived, by the way.
And you know what? Seeing that footage of him coming out and they were just loving on him and bringing him back to consciousness. It's like, oh, Ham, you're so cute. And I'm so sad that you went up there and you might have died. I cried a little bit.
So what we didn't realize, and then afterwards we found out that
from the locals
in Alamogordo,
not too very long ago, like 10 years ago,
right there, they had the whole chimp compound that the military had in White Sands, New Mexico, in the White Sands missile base or whatever. They had a chimp compound, and this is where Ham came from. They had experimental chimps there up until
it's like 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
They were doing biomedical research on them. So, Locke, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is about 10 years ago, the chimps escaped.
Well, the government actually cracked down. I think it was like PETA cracked down on them.
Right. But anyway, they had an escape where they lost 80 of them, and they only got 64 of them back 10 years ago. So was that a juvenile Bigfoot in that tree?
Because what the old timers and Cloudcroft
said, they see chimps in the woods
all the time.
All the time.
So it sounds to me like there's a whole chimpanzee population in the forests above Alamogordo, where we get a lot of Bigfoot sighting reports.
Just saying.
And chimps, by the way, chimps are known to make faces at humans, to mimic humans, to do things like at humans. Wasn't that good? Anyway, so context of the area is super important.
Right.
I want a chimp.
I don't.
I do.
They're mean.
No, orangutans are mean.
No.
Chimps are.
So by doing some research in this area, that photo that we got, that you might say, oh my God, that's a juvenile Bigfoot in a tree.
It's probably a chimpanzee.
It's probably a chimp, believe it or not, because if we did some research in the area and found out that there's like 20 missing chimps 10 years ago in this area.
That means there are probably 2,000 now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway.
And the locals, and the old time local guys who are spending time in the woods up there, elk hunting and whatnot, they got some beautiful Roosevelt elk up there, by the way.
They do. It's gorgeous country.
Yeah.
Chimps will eat your face.
Yeah.
Hey, don't tell me that.
Chimps will eat your face. That's true. So, anyway, these old timers up there to spend time in the woods say, yeah, I see chimps all the time.
I do have one. Next, you're going to tell me I shouldn't pet the fluffy cows.
Yeah. She's talking about buffalo. Yeah. And I have to stop her. Next time I won't stop her. I'll just film it and laugh.
Okay. Well, guess what? We're 5 minutes away.
All righty.
What do we have to say about conspiracy theories?
So, do you think the government's covering up Bigfoot? I most totally think they do. Are all the reports we get about the government covering up Bigfoot true? No, just like all Bigfoot reports aren't true.
Do you think that the government is covering up proof of alien extraterrestrial?
Well, they're not covering up. They let that.
That's true, because if we're busy watching the spaceships, we're not watching the White House.
So there's that.
So,
but so anyway, I hope I haven't seen him in the chat. He's usually late.
Who?
Joe, the Squatching Cowboy.
He welcomed us back to Texas, though.
Oh, we are coming for you, dude.
Yeah, Donald Fuller. I know it's happened. I have watched Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
but Amy was a nice gorilla. Anyway,
so I want to throw this out before we sign off here. We are in Texas. We are going to be in the Lake Whitney area for about a month, starting in like
2 days.
2 days. So if you're in Texas and you're anywhere near, I think it's between, Lake Whitney area.
It's southwest of Dallas.
Yeah, and north of Waco. So we're going to be there for a while. If you want to,
Amy was a good gorilla.
yeah,
She didn't like the bad gorillas, right, Don?
Yeah, if you want to meet up with us and tell us your Bigfoot stories, please email us and we'll get in touch at info@squatchamerica.com. We have our own email place now.
Oh, we have. Yeah. Look over here. Why not? We know that.
Yep.
Okay.
So I want you to put that in the chat really quick. Info@squatchamerica.com.
Yeah. Info. I hate this keyboard at squatchamerica.com.
It's one of the old time, like really bouncy key ones from back in the day. That's my favorite. So with that said, take a look, watch out for chimps around Alamogordo in the woods.
And it's time to remind you that our job is to investigate the unexplained.
Not to explain the uninvestigated.
So please like, subscribe, share this with all your friends. Go to squatchamerica.com and buy our merch. Day jobs keep me so busy. I am working on a new line of t-shirts that we will be selling directly from YouTube. So keep your eyes open for that, and you keep watching.
And we'll keep squatching and
Bye
go out
now.
and find Bigfoot.